The Rugby Championship is back, and that means it's time to build your fantasy squads and battle for fantasy rugby glory. Whether you're a fantasy veteran or a complete newbie to fantasy rugby, this video is your ultimate guide to making the most out of the Southern Hemisphere's biggest international rugby tournament. Make sure you watch, as I'll be providing some big tips around this year's game and this year's scoring to help you maximise your fantasy rugby returns. This year we've got two games live for the Rugby Championship. For the first time ever, we've got the official game made by the makers of the Super Rugby Fantasy game. And then, as always, we've got Superbru. So I'll shortly be running through the two games and giving some hints as to how to play it and how to maximise your scores. But first up, let's take a quick look at the format of this year's Rugby Championship and the schedule. So the Rugby Championship kicks off on Saturday, the 16th of August, and the first two rounds see back-to-back matches. South Africa will be hosting Australia for both rounds 1 and 2, and Argentina will be hosting New Zealand for both rounds 1 and 2 as well. Then we have another 2 rounds of back-to-back matches. So Australia will be hosting Argentina for both rounds 3 and 4, and New Zealand will be hosting South Africa for both rounds 3 and 4 as well. Then for rounds 5 and 6, the back-to-backs will end and we'll see home and away matches for all teams. So for round 5, we've got New Zealand hosting Australia and South Africa hosting Argentina. And then in round 6, the home teams then move away. So we'll have Australia hosting New Zealand and Argentina hosting South Africa. Okay, so now time to take a look at the actual games that we've got in place. As I said earlier on, we've got 2 games in place for this year's Rugby Championship. So I'm going to kick off by looking at the new game for this year, the official Rugby Championship fantasy game. So the official game is a salary cap style game from the makers of the official Super Rugby game. So if you played that, you'll be very familiar with the format. You've got a budget of $100 million to fill your team with 15 players. So you've got to pick 1 hooker, 2 props, 2 second rows, 3 back rows, 1 scrum half, 1 fly half, 2 centres and 3 outside backs. Once the tournament gets underway, you can make unlimited transfers throughout. One important point to note is the rolling lockout. So at the start of your round, your team will not lock out and you continue making trades and transfers. Players will lock out individually once their matches start in each round. In the official game as well, much like in the Super Rugby game, we've got 3 boosters that you can use. These are the triple captain, where your captain's points will be tripled. We've got the limitless chip as well. So for one round, you'll have unlimited budget. And then we've got the co-captain's chip. So for one round, you can select 2 players to have their points doubled. Each booster can only be used once, so you need to use them carefully. And we'll go over booster strategy a bit later in this video. So for those of you who played the Super Rugby Fantasy, there's a couple of changes for the Rugby Championship game to note. One is a scoring difference. So there's a new point scoring metric, 50-22s. If one of your player kicks a 50-22, they will get 10 points. So a really, really nice points addition there. And you'll be well rewarded for anyone who kicks 50-22. The other difference to note is a change in amount of players that you can select from any one nation. So now you can select up to 6 players from one nation. But also worth noting that you need to select a minimum of 3 players from any one nation. So you need to choose your players carefully from each nation, and you can't just load up with the favourites. One other point to mention is the excellent prizes on offer in the official game. SANZAR have been very generous, offering $5,000 in cold hard cash for the overall winner of this year's tournament. Second place does pretty well as well, with $2,500 on offer. And third place also gets in on the act with $1,000 in prize money. Some really great prizes, and they also offer $150 for anyone who wins each week's round. So great prizes on offer. Let's see how we can do it. Here's some tips to help you maximize your points in the fantasy game. So first up is pretty obvious, but choose your captain wisely. With double points on offer, it's worth focusing on the players who are going to maximize their points in the round. You can play it safe with a kicker, or maybe look at the anytime try scorer odds to see if any player in particular is expected to fill their boots with tries. Next up, use your boosters strategically. You get given 3 booster chips over the course of the season. To recap, this is the triple captain, where your captain gets its points tripled, limitless, where you'll have an unlimited budget for each round, and co-captains, where you can select 2 double point scoring captains in one round. Goes without saying that the triple captain should be someone you back to have a huge all-round game. So target any potential mismatches, although this is easier said than done in the Rugby Championship, and try and pick a player that's likely to have a safe haul. For example, I could well be looking at Will Jordan or DMAC against Argentina. That could well be a safe bet. For the limitless chip, I would save this for any weeks where you're really struggling for budgets, which for me never actually happened in Super Rugby. But here, the pricing looks a little more challenging. So if you have any weeks where you're really struggling to squeeze your team on budget, that's the week to use your limitless chip. And then for the co-captain, it's best to save it for a week. If you can't make your choice between two captains, let's just put it on both and use the co-captainship. Next up, use your budget carefully. You've got a budget of $100 million for 15 players, which gives you roughly 6.6 million per player. The pricing on the Rugby Championship game looks a bit tougher than it was in Super Rugby, where budget really wasn't an issue at all. So in this case, careful budget management is key. Unsurprisingly, the premium players come with premium price tags, but there's also plenty of potential bargains to be had, including the likes of Dylan Peach, Mateo Carreras, Timothy Tavatavanawe, Noah Hotham, Carlo Tizzano, great value, Peter Lakai, the Grondona brothers, both Santi and Benjamin, are great value, Afaleli Fassi and Leroy Carter all look to be great value. So if they're selected, they're well worth looking at. And by bringing them in, that should allow you to spend your budget on premium options elsewhere. Next up, load up with kickers. There's no limit on the amount of kickers that you can select, and kicks are guaranteed points. So while you're restricted to one fly half, if there are kickers playing in other positions, then sign them up. Finally, keep an eye out for line breaks. Line breaks and line break assists are worth 7 points and 5 points respectively. This is a potential fancy points goldmine, and explains why the likes of Corey Toole, Leroy Carter and Sevu Reece perform so well in the Super Rugby game. If you can identify any players with a habit of breaking the line or playmakers setting them up, then definitely load up on those players. So that's it for the official game. Make sure you join the Fantasy Rugby Geek League. We've already got over 100 players signed up. The league pin is L12HXKW8, and the direct link to join is in the video description. I'll see you in the league. So next to Superbru. Superbru should be familiar to many of you, but for those new to it, Superbru is a salary cap star fantasy game in which, like the official game, you've got a budget of $100 million. However, for Superbru, this is to build a squad of 23 players with one player in each field position plus one reserve for each position as well. So your squad should be 4 outside backs, 3 centres, 2 fly halves, 2 scrum halves, 4 back rowers, 3 locks, 3 props and 2 hookers. You're limited to 6 players per team, and you're also limited to 6 transfers per round, and any other transfers you have beyond these 6 will incur a 6-point hit. Superbru will be familiar to many of you, but nonetheless, here are some good Superbru pointers to help ensure that you get off to a good start. First up, plan ahead. Superbru, as I mentioned, has a transfer limit of 6 transfers per round. So unlike the official game, you really need to be strategic in your planning. So keep an eye on the fixture list when making your transfers to ensure that you get the best bang for buck for players on your side. And also be careful when selecting players who may only be in the team for 1 week. That could really sting you when it comes to transferring them out. Next, always double check that your 15 is starting before the round lock. Again, unlike the official game, once the game week lock has passed, you can't change your team at all. Lineups are usually all announced by Friday afternoon, so keep an eye on the lineups and make sure that your 15 are actually starting. Next is an old adage of fantasy rugby, but out of position players are worth their weight in gold. Keep an eye out for players who are classified in one position but end up playing in another position. That may well provide greater return. So think of cases like having a winger playing in the centres or a loose forward classified as a lock. Look for those opportunities and use that as an edge. Finally, looking at the Superbru scoring, make sure you load up with players who carry the ball frequently. With half a point on offer for every 5 meters carried, you're going to be well rewarded with players who run the ball in and who can take on and beat players. So load up your team with options who like to run with the ball. As with the official game, there's an FRG league set up. You can join by logging into Superbru and entering the code BEGSSEWS or using the direct link in the video description. So that should be enough to get you started. Throughout the Rugby Championship, I'll be sharing insights and strategies to help you climb your leaderboard and earn ultimate bragging rights in your mini leagues. Both here on the YouTube channel, so please like and subscribe, and also at fancy-rugby-geek.com, where I'll be posting my usual weekly tips and players to watch. I'll also be sharing up-to-the-minute fantasy news on X, Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok and Instagram, so please give me the follow on those socials. And if you want an extra edge, I have my members-only site, FRG Premium, on buymeacoffee.com. For £10 a month subscription, you'll be able to see my personal team reveals, not just for the Rugby Championship, but also for Prem, URC and other competitions, where you'll also be able to share your team with me for direct feedback on any changes I recommend. So please sign up. There's a link in my description. So that's it. Make sure you get signed up to both of the fantasy games, subscribe to my channel and get picking. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments.